This statue on the Bremerton waterfront is very nostalgic to me, and to hundreds of other people here in Kitsap County, I'm sure. It represents our mom or our dad or our brother or our cousin who worked in the Bremerton shipyard during World War II. In many ways, the Bremerton shipyard was the backbone of the Pacific Fleet. After the battle at Pearl Harbor, 6 of the 7 battleships that could be saved were towed here to Bremerton. "35,000 people, workers in the Navy Yard, poured in from all over America. These people worked 3 shifts a day to get them back out to sea and back on our road to victory." My dad often worked 2 shifts a day at the shipyard. He'd get up early in the morning, go in for the first shift, and then stay for the second shift. We wouldn't see him hardly at all. We knew that the work he was doing was extremely important. I can't thank the sailors and the soldiers and the Marines and the airmen enough for their work on the front lines. But let's never forget the people that backed them up. The people that worked in the shipyards and the airfields and the factories all over our country. This represents one of those workers. This statue in this location is truly one of my favorite places. Here in the beautiful Methow Valley, nestled near the banks of the Chewak River, is the little village of Winthrop. It's an incredible place. In the 1960s, this town was kind of a dead-end location. There was no highway across the Cascade Mountains. The North Cascades Highway didn't exist. But as that road came closer and closer, the people in this town got busy. The owner of the lumber mill and the town leaders got together and they said, let's convert this town and make it a real attraction, a destination. Let's make it an Old West town. And that's exactly what they did. And now people come here from all over the world. You never know what you're going to see in downtown Winthrop. It might be some people on horseback coming down from the hills to enjoy lunch. It might be a group of hay buyers from Asia here to purchase Methow Valley hay. It might be tourists from the southern states. You might even see a Cuban opera singer who works as a busboy every year to make money and take back to his family in Cuba. You never know what you're going to see in Winthrop, but it's worth the trip. Winthrop is one of my favorite places. we are in the Kettle River Valley, one of the most beautiful locations of our state. And on this knoll overlooking the valley is the gravesite of Ranald McDonald. McDonald was the son of a Hudson Bay Company explorer and an Indian princess, born at Fort George at the mouth of the Columbia River. He was well educated. He became interested in the Pacific Ocean and the sea, and he took a job on a whaling ship. And while they were whaling off the coast of Japan, he wanted to learn more and more about Japan, and he asked the captain to let him go ashore. Japan was closed at the time, and he risked his life in doing this, but he took a small boat and rowed ashore. He actually capsized the boat partially so the Japanese would think he was in distress. When he got into the shore and was captured by the Japanese, he began to teach them English. And he's now today considered the first English teacher in Japan. Many Japanese visitors come here to this site every year to see his grave and pay their respects. It's an incredible story and one of those that make this one of my most favorite places. This is really one of the most incredible places in the state of Washington. This is Lime Kiln State Park on the west side of San Juan Island. It's from this location that people could come and watch orcas or killer whales right on the shoreline. You could virtually stand above on the rocks and look straight down on the whales. In 1984, the Reagan administration transferred this location to us for $1. I think it was the best buy in the history of the state. This is truly one of the most incredible places in the state of Washington. Kids and adults alike just come here every day of the year to watch whales in the wild. Right here in the west side of San Juan Island, Lime Kiln State Park. It truly is one of my most favorite places in our entire state. When you go to the State Fair in Puyallup, two things are on your mind. First, the taste of those tremendous cones. Secondly, a ride on the roller coaster. This beautiful old coaster, built in the 1930s, now rebuilt a couple of times, it's still just as exciting and just as fun. I remember coming here, I think first in 1956 or 57, and the first thing we wanted to do was get in the line for the roller coaster. It was going to be the best ride we'd ever had. There's nothing like the roller coaster. I've been doing it since the 1950s. The roller coaster is one of my favorite places.
come on over. You guys, why don't you take this side with me? How's that? Thanks. And you're on that side. How's that? Perfect.
Good morning. I'm Kelly Nomura, CEO of International Community Health Services. I'd like to welcome you to our Ron Chu Healthy Aging and Wellness Center location. This is a brand new facility that we would love to thank the state and others for funding. We are currently running a PACE program in the Chinatown International District, and the funding has allowed us to build this beautiful facility that can quadruple our ability to serve our elders in the community. PACE stands for Program for All-Inclusive Care for the Elderly, and it allows individuals to stay at home and in their community while they come here and get all of the services that they need. So we are honored to have you here today, as well as the governor, and I'd like to thank you for being here.
Thanks so much. Dan, do you want to get?
Thanks for coming, everybody. I'm Dan Jackson, the Deputy Communications Director for Governor Ferguson. Appreciate you all coming today. I'll just give you a brief rundown of who's going to speak today and then get out of the way for the folks you really want to hear. So, of course, the governor will speak, then Lieutenant Governor Denny Heck, Senator Emily Alvarado, Catherine Opina, the CEO of Housing Hope, and Patience Malaba, the Executive Director of Housing Development Consortium of Washington. And without further ado, Governor Ferguson. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. And once again, another round of applause for our host for opening up this really beautiful facility to us today. It's really a wonderful spot and an example of what we really want for more communities all across our state. I want to thank all of you for being here today as well. Before we begin with remarks about the investment in my proposed budget around housing and some other aspects of our focus on increasing housing all across the state, I do just want to take a moment, we all want to take a moment, of course, to recognize that our state is going through an extremely challenging time. This announcement was going to be a number of days ago, but obviously got delayed because of what's been going on all around the state. So, I've been visiting many communities around the state. I was up in Whatcom County yesterday in towns like Sumas and Everson and Nooksack, and the situation's very serious for our state and will be for a very, very long time. There's no two ways around that. Thousands of Washingtonians are, experiencing extremely stressful, traumatic time in their lives. And so we see them and we're doing everything we can to make sure that the resources of the state, federal government, local jurisdictions, nonprofits are helping them out. So that's something that's certainly top of mind and occupies almost all of my time these days and the time of many, many individuals. And so we just deeply appreciate all the hard work who are out there working on the roads, responding to emergencies. It's been a great cooperation all across the state. I'm very proud of that. The spirit of Washingtonians helping out neighbors has been inspiring to me. First responders who are literally out there helping people in their community, and then at night going back to make sure their homes are okay. Folks are really going the extra mile, and it's been deeply gratifying. Now, we are excited, though, to talk about a part of our proposed budget that addresses the housing crisis here in Washington State. When I campaigned for governor, I went to all 39 counties. I'm often asked, hey, in going to all 39 counties, what issue did you hear about the most in going to all 39 counties? And the answer was always the same: more housing, more housing, more housing. It really didn't matter what part of the state I was in. But that was something I heard over and over and over again from Washingtonians on both sides of the mountains, in communities large and small. And I think that expression is no doubt because we have a crisis in our state, right? The need for more affordable housing. It's not really unique to Washington. When I talk to governors all around the country, this is an issue that comes up all the time. The need for more housing is something that is urgent in our state and for many communities all across the country. We're here at this location at Beacon Pacific Village, and it really, opened, I think it was mentioned just recently, with 160 units of affordable housing, a senior care center, and a child care center. The amount of services that are being offered here is really remarkable. The state was proud to be an investor in this program, investing $120 million in addition to other public and private funding. We know former Speaker of the House Frank Chopp was very involved. And that's probably an understatement, as he was in many, many issues related to housing in our state. And, at times like this, we think about Frank, as you might imagine. He was just a wonderful leader in general for our state, obviously, but when it came to housing issues, those were close to his heart, as you all know, and as a result, we're thinking of him as well as we celebrate today and the chance to be here with all the folks who make this wonderful organization work so well. So the simple fact is we need more housing. And that's why, since the first day of my administration, we've been laser focused on doing everything we can to create more housing all across our state, to make it easier, faster, and less expensive to build housing of all kinds in all counties. And I'm proud of the progress we've made so far. Look, this is a crisis that's not going to be solved in a day or a week or a month or a year, right? It's not that kind of a deal. But we've been making progress this year. We've made significant investments, over $700 million in affordable housing development, preservation, and infrastructure. And during the last legislative session earlier this year, I won't go through them all, but I must have signed 20 bills, Senator, right, that came from the legislature to try and make things more streamlined and to allow more housing to be built. We enacted rent stabilization and limited annual rent and fee increases. We directed developers to build new affordable housing near transit. We lowered mandatory parking requirements for new developments. The list really goes on and on and on. No one of those things, again, is going to solve this crisis. That is for sure. But continued focus on this is going to help. There's no doubt about that as well. So our work certainly continues, but the scale is big. We need about 1 million new homes, new housing units by 2044, and a significant number of those need to be what we would classify as affordable housing. Rents remain high, and homeownership is, as we know, out of reach for too many families. Nearly half of renters in Washington state spend more than a third of their income on rent, and too many Washingtonians are living without a safe place to call home. So today, in my proposed supplemental budget that will be going to the state legislature, I'm proposing an additional $244 million in housing investments in our budgets for next year. That is, as I understand from my team, a record investment for a supplemental budget. Now, look, we obviously have a whole lengthy legislative process to go through, and legislators will have their thoughts about that as well, obviously. But one thing I feel confident about is the reason why I am optimistic that we can make progress on addressing the housing shortage is because it does impact everybody in all 39 counties, right? Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, whatever your political philosophy is, you are hearing from your constituents about the need for more housing. I think that's why we saw so many bipartisan proposals coming through the state legislature that I was able to sign, and why I'm confident we'll have more legislation this year as well. But this investment, this $244 million investment, will go a long way in helping our situation. I want to also add that while the budget that I'm proposing obviously takes many months to put that together, as you can imagine, the budget was essentially done when the storm hit us last week. So naturally, we have been focused on what our state has been experiencing. But in working with my team, with Katie and others, we obviously wanted to see what we could do to adjust that budget, even this very late date in the process when it's basically done, to try and see what we could do to address the situation that folks are experiencing right now. And so we've worked with my team to direct a portion of this proposal to address the state's flooding response and recovery. So we'll also use this funding to build and protect thousands of affordable housing units, make it easier for first-time home buyers to enter the market, support clean energy upgrades and energy efficiency, and accelerate the process to build housing. This will be important for us as we're moving forward. In addition, I'm signing an executive order, actually just signed an executive order, I should say, to take the next step in creating a Department of Housing and proposing legislation to make it easier for communities to buy land and change zoning to support housing. The idea of a separate agency devoted to housing is one I feel strongly about. When I ran for governor, I focused on that. Look, my philosophy is you got a crisis, act like it's a crisis, and have dedicated folks that is their job, to create more housing. That is their sole job. That's their focus, is important. So more about that momentarily. And then you'll be hearing from our speakers, and we'll be happy to answer questions. So first, let me talk about the flood relief aspect of this proposal that I alluded to a moment ago. So we're proposing, as part of this budget, $55 million for rehabilitation and housing preservation. So specifically, there's $50 million to the Housing Trust Fund Preservation Program, and this investment covers rehabilitation and repairs for affordable homes. My team and I have expanded the terms of this program just in the last week to include repairs for flood damaged homes. So that was not a part of the program before. We're changing the terms of that. That's part of this proposal. So folks facing that situation are eligible for relief from these funds. The additional $5 million will go to grant funding to help low-income homeowners rehabilitate their flood damaged homes. This investment extends the reach of the Low-Income Home Rehabilitation Grant Program, which serves rural homeowners impacted by recent flooding who have incomes at or below 200% of the federal poverty level. Homeowners that have families with children, age 5 or younger, senior citizens, and veterans will be prioritized when awarding grants. So we're going to make this $5 million flood relief investment what we call early action legislation. That allows the legislature to tackle it right away. Instead of necessarily having to go through the full process of legislative session and then get to me, we're making this early action legislation so that can be done in the early weeks of the legislative session and come back to me. This also gives us some time to determine what the full scope of the harm is out there. We don't know that right now because so much of our state is literally underwater right now, and we don't have a sense of that. So I think of this initial investment as sort of a down payment. We're going to have a lot of conversations in the coming weeks about what's going on around our state, and I'm looking forward to working with our legislators to make this early action proposal to get that to my desk right away, long before the session is over. We also consider this funding to be really a bridge while we pursue federal relief from this historic crisis. So I want to be clear, we are seeking disaster relief from the federal government. That relief, if granted, is designed for folks whose homes have been impacted by a flood. That's really what it's there for. But we understand there's a period of time before we get to that point. We want to help folks out, and that's a big reason why we're proposing this right now. No state can handle a disaster on this scale. In fact, by definition, when you ask for disaster relief, the state is saying we can't handle the scope of the damage that's being caused. That is most certainly going to be the case here for Washington State, but we're working to make sure we do everything we can in the short term to help folks out to make sure we get support during this really critical time. Let me talk about the Housing Trust Fund. So in this proposal, $225 million of this proposal is an investment to the state's Housing Trust Fund to quickly develop new affordable rental units to keep pace with growing demand, protect the existing supply of affordable housing, especially in the wake of the ongoing flooding, and support first-time home buyers. In total, this will build or preserve more than 4,000 units of housing. So specifically, I propose the following. $50 million, as I said, for the Housing Trust Fund Preservation Program. To give you a sense of scale, this doubles the investment provided in the current biennial budget that we adopted this year. So it's a significant investment. We have affordable housing that is in desperate need of repair or investment to keep them affordable. And this is especially true, obviously, after the extreme weather and historic flooding. These homes require significant investments to remain functional and affordable. This funding, as mentioned, can be used for flood-damaged homes. $20 million of this is to acquire and preserve mobile and manufactured home communities. That prevents more than 400 households from being displaced. That is an increase, to give you perspective, of 67% over the current biennial budget that we adopted earlier this year. This funding supports critical improvements, repairs, and infrastructure upgrades, preserving these affordable homes for at least 4 decades. $81 million of these funds is to develop approximately 2,000 new affordable rental units. Again, for sense of scale, that's an increase of 38% over the current biennial budget that was adopted earlier this year. This, combined, of course, from investments from other sources, will help us keep pace with the growing demand for new affordable housing. $73 million to build 664 units for first-time homebuyers. That is an increase of 97% over the current biennial budget. And this investment into the home ownership program plays a critical role in promoting home ownership, helping Washingtonians build long-term equity and economic stability. In grant funding, we're proposing an additional $11 million in grant funding. This total includes the $5 million in dedicated flood relief funding that I referred to earlier. The other $6 million is dedicated to speeding up housing development for cities and counties by modernizing permitting systems. I'll just briefly mention legislation. Senator Alvarado will speak to this a bit more. But I deeply appreciate the legislature's hard work on trying to move forward on legislation to address the housing crisis. I'm partnering with Senator Alvarado to request a bill to change commercial zoning to help local governments develop more housing. She's going to speak more about that bill in just a few moments, but just a very, very high-level summary. This bill would require cities and counties that use growth management plans to permit residential and mixed-use development in areas zoned for commercial use. And my budget proposal includes funding to support this legislation. Former Governor Chris Gregoire is here. She's had a keen interest in this legislation as well. I've had many conversations with her about it, and appreciate her support and her advice as well. She's been a real mentor to me throughout my time, going back to my AG days and now as governor as well. So appreciate you being here as well, Governor. I'm also looking forward to supporting additional legislation. There's going to be a lot before us in this session, and I'm confident that Senator Alvarado's legislation that we're working together on will not be the only one. Lastly, my view is that the crisis we're facing does demand a cabinet-level agency focused on meeting the diverse housing needs of all Washingtonians. So to further that goal, I'm proposing resources to help establish a Department of Housing. And I signed an executive order just a few moments ago to create a task force to prepare for establishing this agency. It's a lot of work to do that. I'll spare you the details, but it's a lot of work. But it's important work that we're going to move forward on. Maybe just the last thing I'll say before I turn this over to Lieutenant Governor Heck is that, I elevate the head of our ferry system to be a cabinet-level position. Part of that was because I feel like our ferry system is in a crisis, and I want to have someone in that room who's focused on that issue when I have a cabinet-level meeting, so I'm getting updates in real time, and the people of the state understand that, hey, your cabinet is dealing with folks with the issues that are most pressing issues confronting the state, and we need that for housing as well. We need that. I'm governor. We'll need that for whoever the next governor is as well when that time comes. This is a huge issue for our state. It's going to be for a long, long time. And to have that elevated to that level, I think, sets the right priorities for the state, the right priorities for the governor, and the right priorities for the people of the state. So we have a lot of work we're doing. There's more to come. But I deeply, deeply appreciate all those in this room. If you're in this room, you are playing a key role on getting more housing to the people of the state of Washington through the legislative process, through on the grounds, you name it. You're all there doing that work, and I deeply appreciate it. And the folks standing behind me are also deeply involved. And our next speaker is someone who really helped lead my effort on the transition side when it came to housing. That is someone who, I'm deeply grateful as a new governor to have someone like Denny Heck as lieutenant governor with his experience, who has been a huge help to me and my team, and on no issue has he been more helpful than on housing. So Denny Heck, thank you for being here. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Governor. At the risk of being redundant, but some things bear repeating, we are in a housing crisis. We have a severe housing shortage. The governor gets this. The solution is fairly obvious, harder to implement, but fairly obvious. We need to build more homes of all kinds for all our neighbors, especially affordable homes. People with lower incomes are being double hit by the cost of housing and all the other affordability issues that are stressing them. The governor gets this as well, clearly. Look, I'm enormously gratified to stand here today and be able to make the following statement. We have a housing governor. We have a housing governor in Governor Ferguson. We know he gets the need for more affordable housing because of this historic, it speaks for itself, this historic level of capital budget request for affordable housing in a supplemental budget year. We know he gets the need to build more homes of all kinds. That's the purpose of commercial to residential. And it is gratifying. The legislature asked our office to author a report on commercial to residential, Exhibit A, which we concluded. It clearly indicated that in terms of adding housing, there's gold in them Thar hills. There is significant amount of potential. I'm not going to say anything more about that because Senator Alvarado is far and away the legislative leader on this, and we should all be grateful to her for her partnership with Governor Ferguson in this area. And we know that the governor understands the depth of this problem. And as he so eloquently said, we're not going to address this problem sufficiently unless there is someone in state government whose job it is to increase the supply and production of housing. If it is a crisis, somebody has to be responsible and accountable for getting it done. That's what the executive order will do. And again, it won't be easy. For those of you who have access to a copy, read it. The mission, expanding housing supply across Washington, point A of mission. Expanding the supply of housing of all types, affordable, workforce, middle, and market rate. He understands this. And we won't make the kinds of progress we desperately need over the next generation if we don't laser focus on it with somebody whose job it is to get that done. Governor Ferguson understands that as well. Thanks very much for the opportunity to be here, Governor. Senator Alvarado.
Thank you so much. Thanks to Lieutenant Governor Heck for your leadership in this space, and thank you so much, Governor Ferguson. I'm really pleased to partner with Governor Ferguson on what will be very important legislation to make it easier to build more homes across Washington. We want more homes built in Washington to ease price pressures, to help families have more options, and to grow our economy. And in our state, there is underused land within urban growth areas where housing is compatible, but right now it's not allowed to be built. In commercial zones and in mixed-use zones, these are places where we're already planning for future urban development. There are tens of thousands of parcels where housing is prohibited and where real barriers exist that make development infeasible. Think about it. Vacant strip malls or big box stores that are boarded up or empty parking lots. And now imagine the transformation of those places into homes. What a better future for our communities. And that's what this bill does, and I thank Governor Gregoire for all her leadership on this issue. This bill legalizes housing in commercial and mixed-use zones. It removes barriers and makes it more predictable for builders to build, and it makes home more possible for more families. This legislation builds on significant work that we've done in the legislature, thanks to Representative Peterson, chair of the House Housing Committee, that we've done on zoning reform. We have already taken steps to legalize middle housing, to support transit-oriented development, to allow accessory dwelling units, to enable lot splits, and cities and counties across Washington have stepped up to embrace more housing. But still, the costs are too high for too many families, and we need to do more, faster, to make housing affordable, attainable, and accessible for all. And zoning reform, I need to be clear, isn't sufficient to guarantee that homes get built. But it is necessary to allow that homes can be built. And together with other solutions like scaled public investment to build and preserve deeply affordable homes, and investment to prevent homelessness for seniors and vulnerable people, we can continue to make progress, lasting progress on housing in Washington. And so I thank Governor Ferguson for your partnership on this issue.
Hello, my name is Kat Opina, and I'm the CEO of Housing Hope. We are an affordable housing provider and developer in Snohomish County. We have 650 deeply affordable units that we own and operate in Snohomish County. Thank you, Governor Ferguson, for your leadership and bold investment in affordable housing across Washington state. Snohomish County in particular is facing a severe shortage of affordable housing, and Housing Hope and our Alliance Place project are proud to be part of the solution. Alliance Place is Snohomish County's first development being created through Sound Transit's transit-oriented development program. This project will create over 160 units of truly affordable housing in this emerging urban neighborhood, serving households earning between 30% and 60% of area median income, with 3/4 of those units designed as family-sized homes. Alliance Place represents a significant opportunity for our region. Sorry, I lost my place here real quick. Bringing together deeply affordable housing, community-serving commercial uses, including behavioral health care, child care, and job training programs, all while also daylighting and restoring the underground stream. This is a critical investment in our region. Too many families in Snohomish County are priced out of the housing market. Our workforce, from teachers and healthcare workers to our neighbors in service industries, are being pushed farther from jobs, schools, and essential services because affordable housing near transit options has not simply kept pace with the need. Alliance Place helps change that. Our partnership with Sound Transit, the City of Linwood, and our health and service organizations will ensure this development isn't just about housing, but it's about building community. The Governor's investment and pre-development funding, which builds on partial funding awarded through last year's capital budget, will ensure that Alliance Place has the resources it needs to move forward with the best design and planning possible. Governor Ferguson, we are profoundly grateful for your leadership, for your partnership, and for choosing to stand with communities striving for opportunity, for dignity, and for affordable homes near the transit that connects them to our region. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Patience Malama. I am the Executive Director of the Housing Development Consortium. We are the membership association of the affordable housing sector, bringing together more than 220 organizations across our region who are planning housing, they're designing, financing, building, and operating affordable housing. Governor Ferguson, I want to thank you for inviting us in this room. I was going to name a few of our members who are here, but there's so many of them, including the developer of this very building that we're in, Skipper, Jared Johnson, who's here alongside his team. So I want to thank you, Governor, on behalf of the Housing Development Consortium, for your bold leadership in what you've laid out as housing investments and a housing program. These are historic investments that are coming at the most urgent time in our housing ecosystem. For all of you who develop affordable housing, you understand what that means. We're continuously in a time where we are facing a housing shortage, but at the same time, we're making real progress. It's important to underscore that we're making real progress. We've had our biggest cycle of housing production over the last 5 years. There are numbers that prove and show that. And that has happened even at a time when construction costs are going up, when permitting timelines are further continuously longer. But it has been made possible by an increase in public investments at the state level, $605 million last year. And the governor is coming in at a supplemental budget year and investing more than $200 million in the Housing Trust Fund. That, folks, deserves a round of applause, and I want to thank the governor for that investment. Alongside the public investments has been the private investments that have come through, the philanthropic partnership that has come through, the Amazon Housing Fund that has supported many projects, the Microsoft housing investments that have come through to help projects scale. And I see Jen is in the room from Microsoft. Jen, I want to thank you and your team for the work that you've done to support the production of housing at scale. I know Governor Gregor has been a great partner with you and others in making that possible. That must continue to move forward at this critical moment. Because as much as we celebrate progress, and this is progress across the spectrum, we've produced workforce housing, we've produced an immense amount of rental housing broadly. We've produced a significant amount of permanent supportive housing. A housing-first approach that we know is the solution to chronic homelessness in our ecosystem. We have so much progress that we must today defend in order for us to continue to scale. We're at a critical moment where federal funding is a threat to all of us, and it remains real, and these are investments that are going to go a long way in maintaining that progress. So we're grateful to be at this critical moment in time. But we know that this progress is fragile, with the reality that we're looking at the permitting numbers. They have a downward pressure on them. They've continued to be. The cost of housing continues to compound. And we know that part of that is a system that is not delivering at a faster pace, a system that is not delivering at a predictable pace. So the governor not only put forward housing investments in the Housing Trust Fund, which we're grateful for because that is the capital vehicle to produce affordable housing and preserve affordability, and he's also provided flexibility to support operating funding that is needed on the ground. But he's also moving forward ways that we can accelerate our systems in processing the delivery of homes by looking at our permitting processes. That, folks, is how we treat housing as infrastructure, because funding is one arm, but our processes is another, and we've got to streamline and be sure that we can have a predictable process to support the production of housing. I think the solution is clear, and it demonstrates that the governor understands. We can simplify our processes without sacrificing our outcomes. We can set clear timelines. We can consolidate our reviews. We can be clear on what's required on the developers so we can produce more housing at scale. And finally, we can continue what we know has been effective, which is the public sector coming together, the private sector joining as a partner, the nonprofit organizations coming together to produce deeply affordable housing, but also market rate housing. It's a spectrum that is of essence in order for us to address the housing need that we continue to see. So this is proof for all of us that when we align all of our resources, when we align our actions, we can take on the toughest challenge, which continues to be housing affordability across our region. So Governor Ferguson, I want to thank you for your vision, for your leadership, because with this announcement, and we know there's a lot more work to do to get to the finish line, but we have the tools and we have the confidence to turn these investments into homes. Thank you.
Thanks to patients and all the speakers. But give them one more round of applause for all their hard work that they're doing every single day. Appreciate your work. And we're happy to take questions folks have. I'll just mention Katie Chapman-C, who's the head, of course, of the budget operations. She's here waiting in the wings if there's a detailed question. I've been pretty focused for the past week on, obviously, the emergency of the state. So Katie's here to help answer questions now or afterwards. If you have sort of detailed questions about it, she's available to answer. Any questions? Yes, Jake.
Can you explain the source of this new funding, given the state's difficult budget situation?
Yeah. So Katie, want to come up? One thing I'll just for the public, I'll mention as Katie comes up is, we have, and no doubt folks have read about significant budget challenges we have in our state. So we have different budgets, as you know, Jake, but speaking really to the public, we have different budgets. Our operating budget has some real challenges right now in terms of a shortfall. That's one that had the $16 billion shortfall, obviously, earlier this year. Other parts of our budget are healthier, right, where we can make investments. So at a high level, right, we're able to make those investments. Katie, you want to speak in a bit more detail around that?
Happy to. Thank you. So Katie Chapman-C, the Director of the Office of Financial Management. So the majority of these investments are in the capital budget and would be funded through the state's bonds. There are also some smaller pieces that are in the state's operating budget. A portion from dedicated funds, a small amount from our general fund, where we know resources are very, very tight, but these are critical investments. And then a small amount of Climate Commitment Act dollars for some of the building efficiency investments that are included here as well. But happy to provide more detail, Jake, if that's helpful.
Yeah. Is there, to open up this money, did you need to lower the funding from anything else in the capital budget, other non-housing projects, to find this money, or is it all?
Go ahead.
So there was a small amount of bond capacity left over after the biennial budget was passed. Also, our team did a very, very diligent job of really scrubbing and working closely with agencies, with Department of Commerce to identify where there may be unused dollars from past capital budgets to sort of carve out a little bit of extra bond capacity as well. So I think we've done a really pretty good job of prioritizing investments within the capital budget capacity that we had this session.
Thanks. And I'll just add to that point about, obviously the budget takes a lot of work and God knows how many hours, but, there were multiple times where we'd be chatting about how much resources we had where I would say, hey, can we go back and see if we can find some more somehow? And so the team did really an amazing job. Katie's being modest, but, when I kept asking the team to go back and are there more resources, and they spent a lot of time going through budgets, scrubbing budgets in great detail to see what might be available that we could cobble together and really devote to this purpose. So it's been a lot of work, but I feel very confident that we have absolutely maximized every dollar that is possibly available in our budget to go to housing. Of that, I feel extremely confident. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
On campus at Seattle Building Trades. First of all, thank you for your flood response. I live out in Maple Valley. We've been shoveling out people's garages here every day, all night.
Appreciate
so thank you for that and support. But I thought it was important to come down here to ask that nobody spoke at all about labor. When we say community, we also like to say community hire and apprenticeships. So where is that factored into this around getting, the young people around here to actually work on the projects that we're talking about funding?
Well, that's an exciting part of all this. And in fact, we have a budget announcement tomorrow on infrastructure that will be pretty heavily focused on labor as well, by the way, at that announcement as well, because we know this leads to jobs, good paying jobs for people all across our state. And so that, as you know, has always been a priority of mine to make sure we have those opportunities. And so that is sort of one more benefit, obviously, that's an understatement, of this proposal, right? That at a time where we need those opportunities for workers all across our state, that these are projects. These are building projects. We're building homes. That's construction. And that's going to be very meaningful to folks who work in those industries. So we're obviously very mindful of that as well. So this is not just beneficial for homeownership and making life more affordable for Washingtonians, for many thousands of Washingtonians, but also, of course, for opportunities for jobs for people all across the state. And again, you'll see more of that tomorrow when we have, I don't want to preview that too much to step on tomorrow's announcement, but there will be an announcement tomorrow on greater investments infrastructure, which also resonates in that same area. Thank you so much. Yeah, go Hawks. Yeah, appreciate it. Yes, Jake. Yeah.
How much of this is in reaction to the federal government's changes to the continuum of care and the permanent supportive housing changes proposal? I know this is doing over, but.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of how much, in terms of this budget proposal, how much is a reaction to?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's a good question. I guess what I would say is, for me, I'll let the senator speak or others who might want to jump in on this and have their own perspectives. I'm not sure I needed any extra motivation, okay, to make this a focus. I know Katie and I had a conversation, I don't know how long ago, but one of the conversations, and I was a new governor, right, and we're new to each other on working together, and she was sort of asked, hey, what are your priorities in the budget sort of thing? And I said, first priority is housing, second priority is housing, third priority is housing. Now, that was a little tongue-in-cheek, obviously, right? We have to prioritize a lot of things, but I meant that in a certain way, right? That, hey, this is a top priority. So I think what I would say is obviously aware of that, to put it mildly, but I don't feel I need any extra external things going on to make this the priority. I just feel that I've talked to enough Washingtonians. I guess that's the best way to put it. I've talked to enough Washingtonians. I think, Kat, you mentioned, how many Washingtonians have to move further and further away to get to their jobs. Trust me, I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of Washingtonians, exactly those lines, right, who work not far right where we are right now, and they talk about where they've had to move, hey, every 6 months, every year, further away, and what that means for their time they can spend with their families, time spent in traffic. And so I don't think I need anything external. Aware of that, obviously. Senator, anything you want to add on that? Go right ahead.
I can't speak specifically to the details of the governor's budget, but what I can say is I'll be bringing forward separate legislation to provide some flexibility in existing fund sources that have been allowed for local governments to use, 1406 and 1590 funds, to make sure that they can use those to backfill any loss of operating and services funding that results from federal changes. And look, we have to be all hands on deck on this. The federal government's shift in priorities is damaging to our state, and it will cause a huge increase in homelessness if we don't protect the buildings and we don't backfill and ensure that there is operating and services support to make sure that people stay stably housed in what patients mentioned is the proven solution to homelessness, which is permanent supportive housing.
And, it goes without saying that, decisions coming from the federal government lately are going to have a profound impact on our state, on our budget, in many, many ways. That being one, Medicaid, the list goes on and on. So it's going to require a lot of work to manage through that for sure. Any other questions that folks have?
I can throw you another one.
I'm ready. Go for it. Yeah.
Are there? I mean, it might be also for the Lieutenant Governor and
of course.
Alvarado. Are there other bills that you're looking at on the policy side on housing that you're interested in, hoping lawmakers?
The answer is yes. I don't know if Senator or Denny, if you want to get into that now or have some specifics you want to. I mean, I'm confident there'll be another robust series of legislation that I don't want to get out ahead of individual legislators and the work they're doing. I can say I've had conversations around the state with legislators in their districts about this issue, and proposals are out there. I don't want to get out ahead of those folks for obvious reasons. So, Senator, anything you want to add on?
I'm happy to talk
Let's do that. That'd be great. Yeah. Yes.
The investments in building new housing are really critical. I really applaud that. But operating housing has become very challenging for many affordable housing providers in particular.
Yes.
That's something that's on your agenda. And, are there things that we can look forward to in the next year that might address those issues and enable more other investments that come in to increase the housing supply?
Absolutely. So, look, we have multifaceted challenges with getting more housing, and you put your finger on one that we've had many, many conversations about through the budgeting process. And that's going to have an impact. I mean, we have a budget shortfall that's significant in our operating budget, and that impacts exactly the issues you're talking about. So, in the budget that I'll be proposing on Monday, we're mindful of that, and I have to live within the world we have with our budget, right? We have to adopt a balanced budget. That's the way it works in Washington State. And so there have been a lot of difficult decisions in that budget. I can assure you there are plenty of things in there that I did not want to have to propose, and there are things I wish I could have proposed. But that said, everybody here is really committed to exactly that issue as well. It's multifaceted, as I think you heard from the Senator. We're aware of that. And we'll be working through the legislative process as well, the legislative session, to do as much as we can in that area. So just to wrap up, I want to thank everybody so much for being here, the work that all of you do. Strom, thanks for being here. Governor Rigwire, thanks for being here. This is, we understand this is the start of the process, right? We have a legislative session. That's how this process works. But I think it's fair to say that in putting together this budget, when it came to issues related to housing, well, let me put it this way. Like, I really believe, like, if you've got a crisis of some kind, there's lots of things that are coming at you, right, that you've got to deal with in handling a crisis. But I have this belief that there's always like a North Star around any crisis. Like, there's one key truth to whatever issue you're dealing, whatever the issue is, there's something really, a kernel of truth to it that's got to guide you. And I just really feel for this budget, this time, and what our state is facing, that going all in on housing, right, going all in on housing was really critical at this particular moment. And that's why the budget reflects that. You've got to prioritize, I think, in a time of crisis. And the need here is tremendous. I think we have to act with the urgency that meets that need and meets people where they are, which is we need to make life more affordable for more Washingtonians, and we specifically need to make housing more affordable for more Washingtonians. So a lot of work ahead, but really pleased about this budget. I want to thank my team who's worked very hard under challenging circumstances to put this together. It's a challenging time and a challenging process put together. They deserve a lot of the credit for putting this forward, and really looking forward to working with our partners, with legislators in the days and months ahead. Thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks,